Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode of The Unicorner.
Yay!
It's a show dedicated to help you live a more magical life. So, thank you so much for watching. This was kind of an idea that I've had for quite some time, and it's just nice to actually see it come to life. So, I want to introduce you all to Julia. Julia is one of my favorite people on the planet who is also an elevated lifestyle coach as well. And today, her and I are going to dive into becoming your true, authentic self. So, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Okay. So, I guess we can start. Let's just explain what maybe an elevated lifestyle coach is for people.
Okay. Well, I think the key difference, like what we were talking about, is the soul piece. I kind of like to think of it in three different categories. So, we have that kind of a therapeutic approach where you're really kind of more focused on the acute situation. Maybe there's been some sort of trauma, maybe there's been some sort of crisis, and you're really focused on moving through that situation. And then we have on the other side of that, um, that kind of stereotypical life coach sort of idea where, here is a list of goals that I would like to achieve, and here is the plan that is going to take us there. So sorry, Sammy just popped in for a visit. And so then the third one in the middle, which the idea of a lifestyle coach is that we're really taking into consideration the mind, body, and soul, all five elements that contribute and create our existence. So, earth, water, air, fire, and the most important, I think, is ether. So that part of it is the soul piece, our relationship to our souls, to ourselves. So without that, kind of just a little incomplete. So I think, that's what that's what an elevated lifestyle coach does.
That's such a good explanation.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, it makes so much sense. So thank you for just kind of explaining what that is. So let's talk a little bit about what does being our true authentic self really mean. Let's dive into that.
Yeah, let's dive into that. Yeah, it's a big question. It's a big one. And I mean, I guess just to start it off, it's really about living your truth. You know that old Shakespeare quote, "To thine own self be true," right? And I think it was Othello in that his whole big soliloquy that he did. My grandfather used to say that to me in every birthday card, and at the end, "To thine own self be true." And it's just so important because, we can really kind of get lost when we get off that track of living our truth, being 100% who we are. What do you think? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, and just to not actually conform to the expectations of the world. It's so crazy that there's so many of us out there that are not living our true authentic self, like not being 100% who we are. And that makes me feel really sad.
Oh, no way.
It makes me feel really sad because there's just hi. Hi, Elaine. Thanks for watching. Yeah. Sorry. I also forgot to mention to anybody watching, you can actually put comments and questions in the comment section that we can get to. So my apologies. I forgot to say that. But yeah, so it just makes me really, really, really sad. Oh, Vonda's here too. Hello. Amazing. So let's think about what are the pleasures and the pains that come along with with trying to live authentically. So pleasures, I mean, being able to live a very meaningful life and being able to say yes to all of the things that we actually want.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some of like the pains that
Of not
people?
of not living our true authentic self.
Yeah.
Um,
Hi, Jeanette.
I mean, there's just so many, you like, unless we could start for an example. Let's even go to, so one of my absolute best friends, grew up in a small town
Mm-hmm.
show. And, she wasn't really, illness. Absolutely, Vonda. We'll totally get there too.
Yeah, we're getting to that for sure.
Um, so just to, she grew up in a small town and it was not okay to be gay at all, at all. And so, she held on to that expectation of, well, that means that I have to be straight then. I have to conform to a heterosexual relationship and continue to live her life that way up until she was almost 24. And that to a point where she was engaged to a man. They were planning their wedding, and she just as Vonda said right there, fell into such a crazy depression. And throughout that whole experience, she's abusing alcohol, abusing drugs, not sleeping properly, all of these, completely forgetting to take care of herself, to nurture herself in any kind of way, because she was trapped in this identity or self that just was not true to her.
Right.
And so the story has a happy ending. She figured, she just was like, enough is enough at 24, was about to marry this man, and knowing what marriage meant to her, she couldn't knowingly commit to that fully with her whole heart. And that's what kind of broke it for her. She had gotten so depressed, hit that rock bottom, that she just did what she had to do, called the marriage off, and came out to her friends and family. And everybody was like, oh, thank you. We knew, like, good for you. And it was a great celebration. And, now she's getting married to the love of her life. They have a baby together. And, so it's that, I think, is a perfect example of some pretty serious pain that.
Yes. Yeah. And our bodies will actually physically, it's like our body's like physically warning us, right? Like, so here we are, we're suppressing all of who we are down within our body. And then the only way that it can come out, or our body will actually get sick, or,
start to send us signals constantly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Our bodies actually begin to almost shut down in a sense. So, yeah, it's unbelievable. And another pain, I think, for a lot of people through that whole process is vulnerability. Vulnerability for sure. Also, having to let certain people go, or certain behaviors in our lives that don't actually serve us any longer. So, yeah, I think those would be some pains too.
Yeah. And it's like that, again, coming back to that, like protecting almost the other person, right? If I just to use that example, if I come out and I'm honest about who I want to love, like, what does that mean for my family? What does that mean for my friends? And does that mean I have to let part of my life go? And, even that pain of going through that process, we'll just, like we talked about before, we'll just avoid it at all costs, to the detriment of creating illness inside of our bodies. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like I was saying before, how we just go by everyone else's expectations, conform to everyone else's expectations of what we should be and what our life should be like. And really the only expectations that we should have are the ones that we put on ourselves.
Yeah.
Not what someone else thinks we should be doing, or, So why do you think that people are fearful of being our true selves?
Well, I mean, it definitely comes to that, like what I just touched, rejection, big time, right? We're so scared of rejection. We're so scared of, okay, that means I got to figure it out on my own, create a whole new life, all of these different things. Or, even the fear of, like, let's say something as simple as, I want to be vegetarian. That's what is true to me. That's what I, in my heart, that's part of my values. And, even, okay, so like, how do I do that? How do I get all the nutrients that I need? So it's that almost that fear of what we don't completely understand, like, and the research that it might require, the new education, all of these things and you know what, I really, to even go down, to bring it down even more simply, I think that we're just not taught to question everything from a young age. Like, we're not taught to reflect on ourselves when we make a decision, when we choose something. Is this something that I really want? Is this something that I love?
Right.
Like, I know I wasn't taught that. And I don't think until almost university, when they really start to teach you about critical thinking and philosophy and,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, have sat back and been like, and asked yourself those questions, like up until now, like looking back in your life, is that something that you would have done regularly?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all. And it just goes back to that conforming to the expectation of what everyone, you're supposed to go to university.
Mm-hmm. Even that.
You're supposed to do that, right? So, yeah, but, I think when I was younger, I did actually like get a sense that like I could feel that, university wasn't going to be for me, but I'm going to do it because that's what's expected. And that's just the step that you take after you're done, school, right? That's what you do. Even though I had like absolutely I did fine in school, but I wasn't like academically seeking to become a doctor or, something along those lines. I was very, very creative and, had a lot of loves for drawing and photography and things like that. But, you conform to the expectation. And it's not that anyone is, your parents are trying to do the best for you, obviously, right? But it's just, they also too are conforming to certain expectations in their lives as well. So it's just like this cycle that continues on and on and on until now I feel that we're all kind of, waking up in a sense, I guess you could say, where we are starting to question things and we are starting to look at our lives and look deeply inside and say,
this doesn't work. Yeah. I don't want to do this. And I know that there's something else. And it's funny because I love the point you made and I want to go back to it. I think that there was a time where I did feel that sense. Like I knew that I had choice. And it made me think of, I see it with the youth group that I volunteered, that I run. And it's like, as a kid, we have this crazy imagination and just like all of the possibilities are right in front of us. And we believe so wholeheartedly in magic and just infiniteness. And then I feel like when we start to go through puberty and we go through that kind of 12, 13, 14-year-old experience, that's when we really we don't know what's happening to our body. We don't know, this doesn't feel the same way. Like, we start to become adults and along with all the hormonal changes, all of these things. And then your teenage brain, like there's literally psychology that shows like the teenage brain is different, right? Like it's different. So, you've got this whole sense of like, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God. And then you have all the people that you're going to school with in the same boat. And that everybody's just bouncing ideas off each other, trying different things, doing all this stuff. And the safest place is safety in numbers, right? Is with your friends and conforming to what the larger group is doing. So then you feel loved, you feel respected, and you feel a part of a whole, a part of a community. And I think that starts really right at that age where, I can think of a few things that people have like still remember, like fresh memories of things people said to me that time that have just stuck,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And I deal with youth now too, with the
Mhm.
youth self-development program that I run, and it is really it's an interesting group of people to be around because you know they are still so magical. Um, but here we are trying to teach them, that to be yourself and to, you know, go after the things that you really like and the things that are your strengths and really like, harness those things and just run with it, right? And it's crazy because they really don't think that that's a possibility
Yeah.
already at that young age. Like we're talking like grades 3 to 6, really.
Yeah.
And a lot of these girls that I'm talking about are actually, on the younger end of that. And yeah, they just, they're so creative. And I'm telling them like, wow, this is amazing. Like if you could be an artist, and there's so many things that you can do with that. You can drawings, or you can work in graphic design. There's all these things that they could do, and they really didn't think that that's a possibility.
Yeah. So thank God that you're doing this. Like, first of all, like, amazing. And you, like,
Yeah.
I hope that, how important it is that, really at that age is when those things start to really become apparent, like getting them there, right? So then when we talk about the idea of limiting beliefs and these neural pathways that just get hammered down from such a young age, getting them in that zone where it's like, no, this is a possibility. Open your mind, open up to the possibility there versus, when they're
Yeah,
18, 20 and older.
exactly. Right. And oh, hi. So people are talking to us. Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Mama. My mom is here. Yes. I lost my train of thought now. I'm saying talking to people.
No, so we're talking about getting kids, and I think especially women. I mean, girls have such a hard time with it a lot. I mean, not that boys don't. I'm not saying that, but I think that there is a lot of pressure on girls and women to conform because, like, let's be honest, and that's what I was talking about earlier. I can remember things like girls are so mean to one another, and in that spirit of conformity, right? In
Right.
there. And so you can almost get like bullied into doing it without even realizing it. So, having a place where they can come and learn from, adults that are fun and youthful and not, that show them that those are possibilities it's really important. And that's why, I mean, let's not get into the education system because I could be here for 8 more hours. That. But, I just think it's great that there are programs out there that people like yourself are doing. It's really important.
I felt strongly about it because, it just sitting here now as a 36-year-old going, okay, I finally like got this kind of figured out now, right? And I'm just thinking, wow, it could have happened a little bit earlier given, programs like that. And, but at the same time, we are all on the path that we're on, and it takes us to this very moment. So if I didn't go through that, then I definitely wouldn't be here right now. But it's just nice to help inspire a younger generation to realize that, there's more to life than just going to university.
Yes, there is. Absolutely.
If that's not what you want, right?
And
so, yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to change it. So tell me what you're going to say.
I was doing the same thing. I think it's we're looking at setting people up, right? So we're going back right down to like the root of where a lot of this starts at that age of 10, 12, even younger, and moving forward in life. And so how do we prevent illness? How do we prevent that anxiety that comes in from not being our authentic self? Like, how does that even happen? When you think about that, what do you kind of imagine? How does it work in the body?
My thoughts are that when you're not being who you really are, I feel that energetically everything just kind of stays stuck within your body. And I think that it's kind of different for people. I could just think of one example of somebody that I knew that who was an artist,
Mm,
can do anything,
cool.
really, paint, everything. I'm like knit, like
Mm,
anything, you name it, artistically could do it, and just really, really wanting to do that, and actually ended up developing a lot of reproductive issues. Um,
interesting.
and if you go back and look at metaphysics and the metaphysical explanation of why energy kind of gets stuck in that area, it was really, really interesting to see that it was not allowing your artistic expression to show through. So I thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, like a direct correlation, right? And like when you think of that reproductive issues, you know, the sacral chakra, our creativity center, like it just makes complete sense, right? Like how you can see how that mind body soul connection that I was talking about earlier is just so profound.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could speak to another example.
Your
Before
videos
in terms of autoimmune illness and sort of, oh, you froze a little bit. You're good now though.
I'm good. Okay,
So
you were too, so I think we're back in action here.
um, so she just brought to my attention something that I just really hadn't thought about. So when you think about any sort of autoimmune or you know, muscle destructive kind of illness,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes a chronic illness, right? And you kind of slowly progress.
Right.
And at its worst, you know, you might be in a wheelchair or you might be completely dependent on other people to help you to be comfortable, to live, to eat, all of the things. And so she was like, you have to think about it as like, so reverse it, right? Like, and we were talking about multiple sclerosis in particular, and she was like, think about the two. So multiple sclerosis, there's the hardening part of it, so being really hard on yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and then the destructive part of it, which leaves you in a place of really dependency. So it's there's the metaphysical issue of like, go back to that, like look at the issues around dependency and codependency, and you know, not and then and being hard on yourself too, right? Like, so right through all of these things, conforming, allowing someone else to have expectations for you, not speaking your truth in relationships, making them moving them in that codependent into that area, you know, like all of these things, you know, building up over time. And if this is your pattern and you do this for your whole life, you know, even if it's all subconscious, all of a sudden your body comes knocking and is like, hey,
Yeah.
will you listen yet? Like, you know, so
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
really interesting for me to think about it, like, you know, anything like ALS, right? Like all of these sort of muscle
Yeah.
autoimmune degenerative kind of things like this, that idea of always kind of conforming, not allowing your true independency, your true authentic self, your truth shine
Mm-hmm.
out, right?
Yeah. And that's just how, like, I know I said this before, but that's just how I can actually, like, view it in the
Yeah,
body. I
yeah,
can just view it as this energy literally being stuck somewhere. So it's been, like, dying to come out,
yeah,
but you're not letting it.
yeah,
And you're right. I mean, your body is going to really try to wake you up in a very, very strong and powerful way, especially if you've been ignoring it for years upon years upon years. We can't be surprised when all of a sudden our body works against us. So, yeah.
yeah. And I had another interesting conversation with a woman yesterday that is just such a perfect example of this. A lot of her experience in her career, she's on mat leave now, so she has some time, but her experience before, a lot of things were making her feel physically ill. Like she was disgusted at what was happening in
Mm-hmm.
that environment. And
Mm-hmm.
so much so that in ignoring it and just doing what she was told in her job, that it got to the point where, she was vomiting in the parking lot before she was going to work. Like, so
Wow.
disgust those feelings, disgusted, sick, that's her truth. That's how she's truly feeling about the situation,
Right.
not doing anything about it. Her body is literally vomiting up the energy that she's holding onto and not working through, right? Like, it's
Wow.
that thin, like that connection, right? Like that mind body experience it's
Yeah. I mean, it's so powerful, right? To pay attention to those things. And our
yeah,
body being as powerful as it is, being able to, physically show us when things are not right. I mean, we
yeah.
have to pay attention to all those things. And
And it's such a gift, right? Like that is a gift for your
mhm.
body to be sending you those signals. And, when we talk about, we're all gods, that we are all divine, like
Mhm.
that ability to communicate that way with our body is a reflection of that divinity, right? Like to be able to work that way, like how cool of an, like this body is such an interesting and amazing instrument. Like, it is, and anyway, I'm just like,
Ah.
it's just so like when you really can sink into that truth.
Yeah. Well, and viewing it as what it is, which is the first gift that you're ever given. And, when you start changing your perspective on that and you view
Mm.
your body as being that, then, it becomes so much easier to treat it with the respect that it deserves.
Absolutely.
To eat well and to drink water and to take care of your mental health and connect with nature and like all of these things
Mhm.
that, yeah, it's just changing their perspective on it, that this really is a gift that we have here.
Yeah. And like you said too, when you get that, when you sort of tap into that, you those decisions to take care of yourself, to nurture yourself, to give your body what it needs start to become a lot easier, a lot easier. And when you're kind of forced with that, like just a simple example, okay, I have one from the other night. I was, after that particular coaching session, I was feeling like, no, like just that realization, it was like heavy, and I was feeling kind of like down. And so I went to Pete's and I was just picking up some groceries on the way home. And I was like, I'm really hungry. So I picked up a cinnamon roll from Smith. So yummy. And I was like, walking to the cash and I was like, here's that moment right now where I get to make a choice. Do I want this? Is this really going to make me feel better? Is this really going to give me what I need? This big, beautiful smelling lump of sugar and flour? Or do I just grab some sushi, or I got the seaweed salad, the I think it's called, with the, I love that stuff. So, and it's really good for you, full of iodine, like amazing,
Yeah.
amazing stuff for you. So here I am, like, okay, here's an opportunity. And so I got the seaweed and I felt good about it. but, those decisions become easier once you know.
Oh, absolutely. So Stephanie just said, I've dealt with major throat infections my whole life, especially my teenage years. And since exploring who I really am, which included speaking up and speaking my truth, I've not had a throat issue in over 2 years now. I really believe our physical ailments have metaphysical reasons. Yes!
Virtual high five right there.
Virtual high five. I know. And yes. Yes. See, it's just, it blows my mind though. You know what I mean? Like this stuff really, we have to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. And it just goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time. And like, if the minute you kind of dropped into the elevated academy, elevated lifestyle world, that you create your reality. You create your reality. So this is a beautiful, what we're talking about right now, that mind body connection, beautiful example of that. Just seeing the evolution of it, right? So
Yes.
yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
So
Yeah.
I was going to ask,
Mhm.
so why why do you feel that um, living authentically makes people uncomfortable?
Mm. Yeah.
Let's dive into that. So, I mean, I kind of mean along the lines of family and friends. So,
Yeah. Your most kind of like inner circle, right? Like your inner
yeah.
circle that, because we are the product of the five most people we spend the most time with. And I mean, from my experience, it's change is scary, right?
Mm,
So even within my own experience with my family, when I became vegetarian about a year, almost 2 years now, it was like, oh, so when we have turkey dinner, like now we have to make something for you. And, or like I'll be, when I stop drinking animal milk and it's like, can you pick up almond milk instead of regular milk? And it's, even though they're small things and really they're not a big deal, it's just people perceive it as more work than it actually is. This bigger change, that kickback from friends and family of the change, and it's like not necessarily being able to embrace it because their expectations, their limiting beliefs, their things that have been so hardwired for so long. Even the idea, like just taking the milk thing and running with it, the idea that, we need dairy, we need milk for that vitamin D, for calcium. It's just not true, right? Like, and we know that now. We actually know that it actually affects us pretty negatively as we get old, especially as we get older. So, it's that like that people fear what they don't understand.
mm,
That's
yeah. Yeah, and you're right. It just goes back to a fear thing. And
mm-hmm.
they're fearful of them almost having to be themselves.
Yeah, big time.
Right? So it's almost like you can see why people would conform because it's almost easier to be rejected for not being yourself than it is for being rejected for being yourself.
Totally. It's that safety in numbers thing, right? You
Mm.
feel more comfortable, like at least if I'm being rejected because I do this, I got my other buddies who are doing the same thing, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it's like that, that pack mentality, that animal pack
Yeah.
or tribal, whatever, right? That, if you got tossed out of the tribe or tossed out of the pack, you died,
Yeah. And
right?
probably pretty quickly back then, like yeah,
Yeah.
that was real. Absolutely. Yeah. And, that you just made me think of something else. Also, I think it comes down to, it's that reflection piece, right? Like that mirror piece. So like, I'll say, I'm choosing to not use sugar in my coffee or something like that, right? Or vegetarian. And, like just to use my dad for an example, he's just like, why? Like I've had white sugar in my coffee my whole life. I'm fine, and like the whole thing, right? But the reason he's getting kind of pissed off about it is because deep down, it's pressing on something that he knows to be true for himself too, right?
Mm,
It's reflecting in him in something where he's like, oh, you know what? Like actually, maybe you're probably right, and
yeah.
I have heard that, and it's hitting something inside where they get uncomfortable, and
Right.
right, like their fear turns on, and
Yeah.
reject, 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 pain and pleasure. Pain, I don't
Mm,
want to feel that feeling of, oh, maybe I'm actually not doing it right,
yeah.
and then
Absolutely.
like, and then it's like, okay, now how do I get out of this? I'm going to be angry and like tell you how I really feel, like instead of that is, which is kind of like really it's being sad, or it's being like reflective and like looking inward, and that like,
Mm,
oh, okay, maybe I am wrong, right? But that outward reaction of anger is protecting them in a way, you know?
absolutely. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Carolyn said we may be scared of how powerful and in control we actually are. Can't blame anyone else for our circumstances sometimes. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I know, it's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, like a fear of potential, right? Like totally,
Mm.
totally, totally. Like, so what happens when I am like totally living my truth and I'm just like full steam ahead, everything's great. Oh, I've never been that person before. Like, what?
Yes. And that's where the fear comes, like the fear of not being able to recognize that person
Mm-hmm.
because you haven't been that person. It's easier to go back to who you were because that's where the comfort is. But being this brand new person on this brand new path, and yeah, I mean, that's where the fear of success comes in for a lot of people. Stops them in their tracks because they don't know how to live life as that new person. So they're not
Mm-hmm.
willing to go there. So
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I believe it
yeah,
was Carolyn, right? Carolyn, yeah.
yeah,
So that's a great point.
yeah,
Absolutely. You could totally get trapped in that.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about so limiting beliefs certainly tie in with all of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when I say limiting beliefs, it's kind of like the I can't, the I shouldn't, the I
Mhm.
wouldn't, the I couldn't, all of those things that really stop you from moving forward. Those beliefs that we form at a very, very young age that kind of shapes our perception of our world. So let's talk a little bit about those things.
Mm-hmm.
Limiting beliefs.
Limiting beliefs.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, right. And I mean, we can totally let them. Even the word limiting belief, right? Like that is that even a limiting belief? Like so because you can flip it around, and it's like what we've been talking about a couple times, and even you and Alana have touched on it too. It's like your pain, your struggles are your gifts, right? They really are. And so when we think about a limiting belief and how it's maybe structured our life up until now, you know, but like you said, if I hadn't gone through all of those things in my life, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't have had this awakening and am teaching this amazing youth group. Like I wouldn't necessarily have done that. So while limiting beliefs are really important to acknowledge and find in
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, it's also important to not allow your ego to use that as a weapon against you, you know,
Mm,
don't let
yeah,
it take you down, right? Which I think, happens for a lot of people. What do you
yeah,
think? Yeah.
yeah. It's sad to think of all of the great things that people want to be doing and can be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really limited by something that how they perceived the world um, a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
Right.
just think in particular, like just give an example for myself. So I had this limiting belief of not being good enough, which stems back from a situation that happened on a playground when I was like 6 years old,
Yeah.
where back then the thing to do was to ask somebody to be your best friend, right? When you're
Right.
6 years old, you want to be my best friend? Yeah,
I
sure.
want to be your best friend, yeah, me.
So when these two girls had asked me to be their best friend, and I said, yes. And they said, okay, but first you have to go through this obstacle course on this playground. So, of course, I do it perfectly and I come back all excited. And I said, okay, I can be your best friend now. And they said, yeah, but you didn't do it good enough. So, that, as
Oh,
silly and
yeah.
ridiculous as that story sounds, and I can laugh at this moment, it's the very first moment in my entire life that I actually felt that I wasn't good enough. And that was at 6 years old. And
Yeah.
then it kind of continued on after that with being involved in sports and heavily involved in sports and, winning and that not being good enough. I won, but I still could have done this better and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, till this day, that pops up
Mhm.
before I were to do anything, before I were to start that youth self development group, before I was to start my own business, before I was to start doing anything, I literally think that I'm not good enough. And that's where it stems from, all of those years ago. So this perception of me not being good enough, I've carried over into adulthood. And the thing is that I'm aware of it. I know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And it never ever will go away. It's just now I can recognize when it actually is stopping me from doing something, and now I can navigate through it.
Awesome. And
And that's
so
rude.
what allowed you to do that? What got you to the point where you could recognize that and kind of piece together? Because I think it's also important, back to that human psychology bit, like those first experiences that, 0 to 12, like those key years where you're really building your experience of
Mm-hmm.
are so fundamental. And so it's not surprising that at 6 years old, having something that traumatic, like, you know, your friends are everything when you're a kid. They're everything. Your classmates, your teammates, it's like a big deal. And so when you are on the receiving end of like some weird bullying like that, where, it's like you didn't, you didn't do it good enough. Like, that idea. And then that gets planted there, even though you knew that you did it perfectly, right? Like that it's at 6 years old, that's your first experience of your classmates, people in the same age as you telling you that, like, it makes logical, psychological sense how you would store that, right?
Oh yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And so, the why, and then you can go back and start to figure it out. But what allowed you to start to use it into your power? Like what allowed you to kind of first of all, dig that up and find it,
Yeah.
locate it.
Well, yeah. So coaching went through a major transformative coaching process, and was able to really find all of these situations in my entire life where I've used that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't aware of it, and I didn't know, and I didn't even realize that that's what was actually stopping me.
Yeah.
So I became, during that process, I became aware of, where it came from. So I actually like seeked out the actual source. And then I started to, recognize when that was actually stopping me.
Awesome.
So if I wanted to do something and I was going, I really want to, but there was like this hesitation, I knew that that's what was actually stopping me. So I just learned to, and like everyone should, you just have to really redirect it, because it's not going to go away. It's going to pop up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But you can definitely redirect it. You can replace it with something a little bit more empowering, right? So instead of being like, I'm not good enough, it becomes, I am good enough. I'm going to do this. I don't care. Which is why I'm talking on a video right now.
Yeah.
And so you're just replacing it basically. It's there. You recognize it. You redirect it, and then you just practice it over and over again, because
that's the key, practicing it. Absolutely. And I love that that story, and then what Ellen was able to help you to replace it with something that was a little bit more of you had a little bit of an eye-opening moment there, right? Like,
yes. So I had a coaching conversation with Ellen, and he's another elevated lifestyle coach, and we spoke about this limiting belief, and he actually had me go back to that moment and on the playground. Yeah. And he said, basically had me change my perspective of what I thought back then. So back then, I wasn't good enough, I can't be your best friend. But he said, well, what if it was, you did it too good and they were just really insecure?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that is a possibility, right? So it changed my total perception of that whole situation. I went, wow, is it really that simple to really like just because that was my perception, right? I formed my perception. I didn't know. I made my own opinion of that situation. So why can't I go back and totally change that
Yeah.
to something else? What if I did it perfectly and they were just intimidated? Then
And
what?
and they're going through this whole scenario of conforming, and it's like, hold on a minute, I got you, like that's a little too powerful, that's a little too good, right? Like we gotta
Mm-hmm.
conform back here, and no, this we set the stage here, right? So
Yeah.
we can't be having you be all better than us, okay? And absolutely,
Yeah. It was pretty wild to, and I guess, thinking about the limiting beliefs I had, it really did stop me from being who I truly was.
hmm
And especially being a writer and, conforming to writing a certain way and, thinking, oh, I'm not good enough to write this, or I'm scared to be myself because then people are going to think that this is stupid, and all these limiting things go through your mind. But now it's all about truth. It's all about um, being 100% myself at all times,
yeah,
in my writing, in this group, in these
yeah,
videos,
that's awesome.
right? It's just there's no more limiting myself.
Because what's the point? What is the point of limiting yourself?
Yeah.
How does that serve you?
Mm,
There's
yeah.
no real answer to that, right?
Right.
There really isn't. And the only answer to that is more fear, right? Like you just live in more fear. So when we think about coaching and that experience, it's like digging into finding out the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and really it comes back to what we were talking about in the elevated one too. It's like asking yourself those questions, asking yourself the true questions, and looking at a situation and how did I really feel there? Like, why did I really make that decision?
Right.
What were the factors at play there? And really kind of, what do I really believe about XYZ? Is that even true? And coaching is an amazing tool that allows you to have an outside perspective come in and push the buttons, because sometimes we can't do it ourselves. But so how can we do it in our daily lives, on our own, when, because
Mm.
we cannot, even if we have a coach, you can't always be like, okay, this is what I'm doing. Like, what do I do? It's, your life would slow down because of that, and, all of these things. So how can we do it in a productive way every day so that, we're always moving forward. We're always looking at the truth in a situation and critically thinking and questioning everything.
Yeah, questioning and being able to sit down and actually answer, like ask yourself questions and kind of answer. I find we don't do that enough. I find that we just don't sit there and dive really deep into any particular question. So when it comes to like not being like your true authentic self, I mean, you can start trying to answer the question like, when am I not being myself?
Mm-hmm.
Is it when I'm at work? Is it in my relationship? And then who is it in my life that makes me feel like I can't be myself?
Yeah,
You
that's a good
know,
one. Yeah.
yeah. And then, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if I am myself in
Mm,
these situations?
such a great one.
So, just asking. So I guess that's what I really want some people to be able to take away from this whole episode here is just make a list of all of the things that you like about yourself, but also make a list of all the things that you dislike about yourself as well. Because the biggest thing is you have to be willing to accept all of yourself, how you are at this very moment.
The light and the
Because,
night.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So start with that and then start to answer those questions. So when am I not myself? So think of all the times when you feel like you cannot be yourself. So like I said, at work or in a relationship, and who makes me feel like I can't be myself? And then what's the worst thing that will happen if I am myself?
That's the
Because
one right there. That's the one. And get really curious. Like once you start letting some of those answers come up, like dig into the ones where you're like, oh, whoa, ones that make you do that, go a bit deeper, get curious about what's really happening and just keep asking yourself more and more questions. But yeah, I love that one. The last one you said, it's just such a powerful.
what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Because really, seriously.
Yeah. It's not that bad. I mean, more often than not, right? But
yeah.
It's really.
Like I think about like, oh, I didn't want to make videos because I would come across stupid, or I'm going to sound silly, or I'm going to this. And really, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
I mean, really, let's answer it. Let's do an example. So what is the worst thing that could happen if you made a video and you put it out there?
Mm-hmm.
So nobody would watch it.
Yeah.
Somebody would watch it and be like, yeah, that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
It would just sit on your news feed.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
That's it.
That's the worst.
Right. Or it could empower somebody. It could inspire. It could inspire somebody to want to do the same thing or to push past their fear of public speaking or making a video. Oh, I could never do that, but she did that. Maybe I could do that. Right? Yeah. There's all of these other things that can come along with it.
The range of possibilities, right? Like here's the worst and here's the absolute best. All of these exist. All of these. So when you break it down and that absolute worst part of it, nobody watches the video, not any different than you not making the video. So like still like they're equal. There's no failure there. There's no such thing as failure, like it's just not a true thing. And because you always learn something from whatever experience you do, it's always test for you to pass and see, and, pass or fail. Okay. So I went and behaved in the same pattern. Okay. Let's get curious. Why did that happen? Was it just the default, or did something trigger here? Like get really curious about why you're making decisions and ask those questions, and like you're gonna blow your own mind.
I know. My mind is literally being blown on the daily. I posted that in the group the other day. And
it's so good, the open eyes, and it's just like love it.
Yeah. And I guess it's just people just really have to be willing to be emotionally honest. And I think that's why like making the list of what you like about yourself and also what you dislike about yourself, I think that's really, really important to do, because we all have things that like bad sides of to ourselves. Like we all do. We all have things that we don't like. And when you can actually become emotionally honest, then you can kind of move forward and make the changes necessary to not be that anymore. But if you don't acknowledge it and you don't recognize it for what it is and accept it, then
you're just going
to stay in the same spot.
Stuck in square one, hanging out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like life, it's just, well, I don't like saying life is too short, because then, words are spells, right? Or can be spells. So, but it's like, what is the point of staying where you are right now when all of those possibilities that we just talked about exist and can propel you forward in a magical, unicorny, fairy way? Right? Why? Why deny yourself that magic? You know, oh, I wanted to show everybody my unicorn earrings that I'm
Oh my,
wearing.
I am like super jealous.
I got those. Had several pairs. And I asked Ricky, I was like, which pair of unicorn earrings should I wear? But there you go, right? Possibilities of magic in your life. So why deny yourself that?
Absolutely.
There's just, and because it's a little bit of work, you know, that's not a good enough reason. It's not.
No, gosh, no. So basically, takeaway from today would really be yourself always.
It's so much easier.
So much easier. Do not be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Do not be afraid. And surround yourself with people who inspire you and motivate you and support you. And another big thing is to trust your instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Trust your instinct. If something's not feeling so right, you got to go with it.
Yeah, and ask the question. So, you know, you have that gut reaction, something is not feeling so awesome right now, and you look at the situation you're in, the perfect question you could ask yourself when you have that minute of hesitation is, what would love do? What would love do in this moment? You know, go to your heart.
Wow.
What would love do? And
what would love do?
Yeah, it becomes so much easier to make that decision, right?
I love that. So we have some comments here. We've been like cruising along. So Wanda said, I've been loving the earrings for an hour. I know. I know. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm so jealous of Julia and her earrings. There's one of the things I dislike about myself, my jealousy towards your earrings.
Well, now you know that I'm going to have to send you a pair, right? Because we wear them when we do these shows together.
I know. It would be awesome. And Stephanie said, when I am not myself, this is an awesome question. Could listen to you ladies talk all day. Aw, that's nice. And Samar said, you are definitely inspiring and encouraging me to do live videos myself right now. Awesome. Like,
and you have a lot to say, Samar. Like, get it out there. That's good. You've got stuff to say that people need to hear. So awesome.
Absolutely. And Samar also said, for me, it is a fear of having so much power, responsibility, and scared I will make a mistake, as well as fear of being up that high and then somehow something happening to take it away and disappoint me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. I'm so... Yeah. I'm so serious. Like, I know. I mean, fear is obviously an emotion that's needed, and it's very, very important. And it's kind of that emotion that will kind of propel us to where we need to go, I think. So fear is actually a very, very healthy and important emotion. It's just to really push past it. You know, push past it.
Because and ask that question. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, just that's all.
Back to what you said, like, what is the worst thing? So if I make that mistake, what's going to happen? Right?
Yeah. I know. Do you think we should do a card? I have my. Let's do an angel card reading.
Your angel cards. Mine are in the other room.
Okay. So what one am I going to do? We have like a minute left. So. What do we feel like today? Angel answers? Unicorns?
Yeah. Nice. Awesome. I love it.
Magical unicorns? It seems so fitting.
It's very fitting.
All right, so let's see what the unicorns are saying today.
What are we saying today, Deelle?
All right. I'm just shuffling them. What do they want us to know today? Definitely yes.
Awesome. So, should I make a video? Should I do this? Yeah, definitely yes.
Can everybody see that? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Definitely yes. The answer to your question is a strong yes.
I love it.
So I can actually dive into that a little bit here before we go. So says what you're asking about will definitely happen, provided that you keep your thoughts positive. You can bring about your desires more quickly by paying attention to thoughts, feelings, words, or visions that repeat themselves to you. When this inner guidance asks you to take positive action, it's important for you to do so. For instance, if you have strong feelings to call a certain person, then make that call. Your angels will always guide you to take actions that have positive and healthy effects on you and others. This card asks you to set aside doubts or worries and to feel secure that everything is positive. Your desires are going to happen and probably in better than expected ways. Imagine that your dream has already come true using your inner vision and your feelings as you do. You just need to stay filled with faith and hope and take action that you're guided.
That like couldn't be more perfect for talking about listening and being your true authentic self.
I know.
Yeah, like
You
perfect.
can't make it up.
You
Can't make this up.
It's like, but what did the card even said? Like repetitive messages, right? Like when you're hearing those repetitive messages in your heart, they're there for a reason, and they're trying to tell you to listen.
Yes. So again, everybody, definitely
yes.
And on that
note,
we can end this conversation. Julia, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Like I said at the beginning, you're like one of my favorite people on the planet. So glad you were here to talk about becoming your true authentic self. And I hope everybody takes away a little something from this conversation. Feel free to continue to leave some comments below, and I'll answer them. I'll answer the questions.
Answer all the questions.
I'll answer all the questions.
Awesome. Thanks,
all right, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.